I am the Craft Dad.
Alright, it's time for Darth Vader Helmet Part 3. So in the first two parts I did the paper and I did the wood glue covering. Now it's time for the Worbla. Okay, so a lot of people, said that they don't like the still pictures. They prefer to see me doing the action live. So I've got some pictures and then I've done a lot of video recording. What I found out is that my micro SD card is not high enough speed to keep up with the camera, so the video stops a lot on its own. So you'll see cuts in the video. So what we have here is our Worbla. It's the thermoplastic. Start heating it up. I cut a big piece here. You can do this in many different ways. There's people that like to use one big sheet, put it on, heat it, and press it into place. That way they have as little breaks in the Worbla that they have to deal with. Other people, they like to work with smaller sections, get it looking good. The benefit to working with the paper and the wood color, wood glue as the base for strengthening it, I can heat the Worbla up as much as I want on the material, and it's not damaging it underneath. And that's what I found out during this process. So I ended up heating it up, the Worbla, get it to lay flat, and I figure out, okay, how big of a section do I really need out of this piece of Worbla? I'm going to go with the Frankenstein method of Worbla, which is cutting out small sections, putting them where I need them, and then piecing the Worbla together. If you heat the Worbla up enough, and you add extra Worbla where the creases or the seams are at, you can piece the Worbla together to where it looks seamless. And so that's one of the things that I want to try to show here, that you can create a nice looking piece if you take the time to work the edges, and it doesn't take that long. Okay, so what you see me doing here, as I ramble on about the other things, I'm kind of measuring this initial piece because the front mask of Darth Vader, this plunges in, and so I kind of want to cut a piece large enough to kind of shove in there and spread out, and get the Worbla to fit and tuck into the different places. And no, you are not hearing things. That is my littlest booger running around making noises. And so what I'm doing here is I'm cleaning off my tools and getting my stuff ready. I've cut the Worbla out to the size that I would like. And again, there's many different ways you can do this. The paper covering with the wood glue came out really nice. And in the areas where there's a lot of creases and stuff, it's very strong, and along the neck it's actually flexible, so that's something that I need, because in order to make this easy for my son to look around, he's got to be able to look down. And so what you see here is I've kind of heated the Worbla up, and I'm realizing it's not heated up enough to easily place where I want it. It's still kind of stiff, and it's malleable, it's bendable, but it's not to the state where I feel I can easily push it into where I want it and get as little overlapping and texturing. And so that's one of the problems you have to worry about when you're working with something that's got a lot of deep fissures and grooves and stuff, is getting the Worbla into that slot without tearing it too much, but that doesn't matter because you can always repair it. So as you can see here, I've got the Worbla over it, and I'm pressing it in. As you can see, I'm ripping the Worbla. Now, I'm not freaking out because why? I can put more Worbla there and fix it. And so what I'm doing here is I'm working on getting the vents and start getting them covered. Because it's paper and it's thin, I've already cut it out here. There's 2 layers of paper. I've got the wood glue, but this is probably the most fragile part of the mask. Once I get the Worbla on there, it'll be pretty strong, and it is now. When I work with it, and I want to add more later to kind of beef it up, make it look more like the vents that you see within the movie and stuff. And that's the cool thing with the Worbla, is you can always add more Worbla wherever you want. So as you can see here, I'm heating the Worbla directly on the mask. Now, why am I not pushing the sides down immediately? Well, because I want to work my way from the middle out. And I already know I'm going to have to work with the Worbla and get it to add more to it to make it seamless, so that you don't see the paper underneath. And that's more just so I have an even texture when I do paint it. Now, when you are pulling the Worbla over the outside, you want to be careful with how many creases you end up having to do. You may the Worbla is really neat because you can compress it, you can stretch it. So I mean, it's you can work with it to kind of fit in and lay down nice and smooth. You just have to take your time and work your way from the inside out. So as you see here, I'm still focusing on that inner part. What I end up doing is I add some Worbla on the back side, and then I've overlapped some more Worbla. And that's what you see me here is trying to fold it over from the front side to the back. But because of how malleable it is right now, it's kind of like, really, really soft putty. It's hard to work with because it's bending and moving the vents for the mask. And so I'm reaching in the backside here, and you can see right now I've got all the paper supports there to help keep the mask in shape. But at the end, I don't need the paper supports. As I work my way from the bottom up, I end up removing those supports. Now I started here in the middle again with the mask because this is the most complicated area of the mask. So as you can see here, a nice close-up picture. It's a little rough, but it's a start. And from here I'll work my way towards the rest of the mask, and I'll come back and address the vents and make them nicer. What you see here is I've added a piece of Worbla on the left side, upper side there. And what I talking about, you heat it up to where you can work with it, and this is the before picture, and this is the after picture. If done correctly, you can barely tell that Worbla was ever added right there. Okay, so if you take your time, you can really use the Worbla to fix any areas that end up overstretching and ripping. Here we are on the right side, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut some smaller pieces of Worbla, stick them right there, heat it up, and patch it in. And I even did it in the front part of the nose. You can't really see it here, but the vents, they're looking a little better. I've got to work on them some still, make sure I can get them nice straight. But as you can see, I've started pressing the face down. And now you can see some overlapping on the corner right here on the top of this right cheekbone. But, hold on. My littlest booger was crawling under the desk, and I ended up kicking him by accident. So that's why I said, hold on, I gotta check, make sure he's okay. So as you can see here, I folded it over, but instead of trying to work the Worbla into itself, I just cut off the excess right here. And this is where I got for the first night that I was working on. And mind you, this was actually done probably within a day, covering doing all of the Worbla covering. But since I'm working just at nighttime and during when I do have time, it took me several days to do what could have been done easily in just a day. So as you can see here, the Worbla is a little thin, that you see the paper showing through, and so I ended up doing the same thing that I had talked before, adding in the Worbla and then heating it up and pressing it in. Now, in the videos, what you see is I'm using the wood clay tools, and you can buy the wood clay tools as a set, which is great because then it gives you all kinds of different shapes that you can use. Now, as you can see here, I've already got the bottom of the neck done. I'm working right now the face, and depending on how well you do the Worbla, you can tell where it's been added, where it hasn't been added, like where the seams are at and stuff. And you just take your time. Now, I understand that the way I'm doing this is not the only way out there. There are other ways where you can use other types of material. But this is, because I'm trying to find ways to do this where it's not going to be overly expensive. I'm not trying to make my son a $500 Darth Vader helmet that he can end up destroying on Halloween night. Don't think he will destroy it, but you never know. So I'm looking for cheap methods. That's why I did the paper. That's why I did the wood glue. Wood glue is like $3 for the bottle, and I didn't even use up the whole bottle. Versus paying over close to $100 for other products that I can pretty much do the same thing with the wood glue. Now, the great thing with the Worbla is you don't get the bubbles when you're working with paper. The bubbles that you get in Worbla come from the burning of the foam underneath. So when you work with Worbla on foam, and if you overheat it too much, you burn the foam, and the foam, releases gas, and then the gas is trapped because the Worbla is not a porous material. well, I mean, it's not where the air can escape through. So um, so you have to be careful with that when you're working with foam. So as you can see here, I've cleaned up the areas that I had overstretched and you could see through, and now I'm cleaning up the edges to give it more of a sharp edge, for that V shape. And I know there are some videos that show, or not videos, there's some pictures that show, there's holes in the vent there so that, you can see through them. There's other ones where it shows there's not. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try to cut anything out right there. Now what you see right here is I was doing some working on Worbla late night, and I didn't do a good job, and I was tired, so I wasn't paying attention. But what I'm doing here is I'm heating it up and I'm compressing it down with my thumb. Now it does get hot, so be careful. You can easily burn yourself. I've gotten a little more tolerant to the heat, but again, just be careful. So you can kind of tell just by the difference in the color where I've got Worbla placed over Worbla. And I prefer not to do that, but since this is the underside, I went ahead and did that just to kind of give you guys an example of what it would look like. Now I'm thinning it out here more because where I've got 2 layers of Worbla, the thickness, it's thicker than where it's only a single layer of Worbla, and it leaves a indentation that is noticeable. So I'm trying to press it down, stretch it, pull it towards the back, kind of just smooth it out and stuff. Now you can see again there's a part where I overstretched or I didn't have enough and it didn't make coverage. So instead of trying to push the Worbla around and stretch it to fit there, I just heated it up and added in another piece of Worbla. Sorry about that, my phone alarm was going off. So what you see me doing here is I'm trying to keep the edge straight, and so I was just heating it up a little and using the tool to kind of do the edge straight. So here I am, I'm doing the Frankenstein piecing together. Now what I'm trying to do is get the edges as close to each other as possible so I don't get too much overlapping of the Worbla. A little overlapping is fine because I can use that to help really mesh the Worbla back and forth on the crease so that it's not noticeable. And if you don't have the right size piece, that's fine. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm working the Worbla, and I kind of work it back and forth to really mix the Worbla back together. That's the great thing with Worbla is you can easily reattach it to itself. It's not like other materials that once it's broken the bond, that it's really hard to keep it together without some other type of glue assisting it. Whereas with Worbla, you can literally, I mean, just heat it up and stick it to itself, and it will act like it's never been torn apart at that spot. And so here, just again working it and kind of bending it now because it's really pliable at this point. I'm just going to let it dry at whatever angle it dries at or cools off at, and then later on I'll heat it up a little and press it down or press it, fold it up, fold it down, however I need it to work in order to fit my son so that he can actually move his head around a little without it impeding too much movement. I could probably go with a shorter neck part there. And it just all depends on what you want to do. I decided to leave it, and as you can see here, I don't have Worbla all over the inside. I'm not doing this as a pancake method. I'm not, secretly, filling the inside of the mask with another type of material. This is just straight Worbla and paper with wood glue as a stiffener, and that's all it is. And I'll do a video here to show that. Now this isn't the edge that I pieced together. It's another edge, and I pieced it together. But I've got a video that I will show that has me holding the corner, and if it was any other material, it would literally snap apart unless it's being held together with additional glue of some sort. I want to show how strong the Worbla makes the paper. So I'm holding the corner and I'm tilting it, and as you see, as heavy as it is, it's not collapsing downward. I can even go this way. You can see it's pretty strong with the Worbla. Again, here you can see the underside, it's not completely covered in Worbla, and I didn't even have that much on there. I've added a little bit more since then just because I wanted to try to keep the edge further up so it's not on the neck as much. But all I'm doing is doing sections, adding it in, heating it up. I mean, you can see the huge gap I've got right there between the two pieces. You know, I'm trying to fit the edge that the mask is going to have uh, the pipe along, and then I'll go back and add Worbla in and fill in the gap there. And as you can see here, I mean, as I'm pressing hard on the paper and working it, I mean, it is giving and taking, but I mean, it's not collapsing completely under the weight that I'm putting on it. And I've got my fingers on the backside of it, you know. And so again, the cardstock, the wood glue, you know, it's holding up nicely as I work with it. And so, I mean, I can push down on it. I mean, it's bending a little, but again, it's letting me compress and form the Worbla onto the paper. Now, there are some hard parts, not hard, but the ridges. One of the things I didn't think about as I was putting together the Pepakura helmet was that there are some places that the Pepakura says, hey, this is a bend, and well, I really didn't need to bend it right there. And so I could have avoided the bend. So I've got some extra bends and stuff and ridges within the Worbla that I didn't really need. But I can go back and I can press those down to try to get a more smoother type surface. And you know, it's not just the Worbla that you get a smooth surface from. The way you paint it and the way you finish it will also help give you that nice smooth surface. And so as you can see me, I'm just heating it up, working it back and forth, and I kind of do like a push and pull type effect with the tools that I'm using, and that helps to kind of like press and meld the Worbla into the mask. And so I've got about half the mask done here. As you can see, I'm doing it in sections, filling it in, and then I'm cutting a little, and I heat it up and I press it on. And at this point, my camera ends up dying, but I didn't want to stop working on the mask because I am on a timeline and I do want to get this done in time for my son. So we are back to some still photos. So here you can see where I ended up having to stop. I was able to get one picture, and you can see the neck is a lot higher. And then I didn't really worry too much about it, like I said, because I was going to be figuring out how high or not so high I want the neck.
All right,
So the battery's recharged enough. I'm doing a video, so I'm showing the Worbla as I move it around. Now, some of the imperfections and some of it's you know, gonna have to be smoothed out. But as you can see, I don't have any supports. It's just the Worbla and the paper. I'm tapping and hitting parts of it. As you can see, I'm pushing and pulling. So I mean, it's made it pretty darn strong. You know, and with some work and heating and pressing, you know, I can get, you know, some of the areas the way I really want them to. You know, it just depends on how much effort I want to put into this. But this is looking awesome, and even if I just, you know, stop here, do the wood glue to smooth it out, and then paint it with a black and then glossify it, you know, that would still look awesome. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you guys like the video. I hope the angle I did the recording at was okay. I tried really hard to try to get a good recording angle. If not, please let me know, and I'll have to try to figure something else out. That's why I'm the craft dad. That's why I do side projects. But again, thank you all. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.